good to be back in the confines of our Scott Stadium again at home. Again, I wanted to say something about the effort of the team. I thought the effort of the guys was a great effort. We came up short. Was a learning opportunity for us to understand that when you go on the road and you're playing really good teams, that the margin for error is so slim, so slight. And we learned from this game and now have an opportunity to come at home for the next couple of games and play a Kent State team that's coming in. I'll take any questions.
33 points the other day, 519 yards, dominate the time of possession. Final score notwithstanding, do you feel like the offense found a gear it hadn't had before and it's something you can build upon?
It was definitely a good showing offensively. I believe in that we had 30-something first downs, and that was key in the time of possession and holding the ball. It was good to see production from scoring. It was good to see, players, or I believe 13 different players had opportunities to touch the ball and make some plays. It was good to see us throw the ball down the field. I believe there were 8 passes that were 15 yards plus, and then 3 of them were aided by pass interferences for them. But it was a positive step, for our offense. I mean, obviously, there was no sacks, but they got to our quarterback. They hit our quarterback, our quarterbacks, and they did a good job on their rush. But, it's always been, the mindset of if you can be efficient on offense, move the ball, then score some points, then play good defense and special teams, then you have a chance. And, again, in this game, unfortunately, they had the long kickoff return that, at different points of the game, the tide was turned. But at that point, the kickoff return was, was something that we just couldn't overcome. But as I said, the offense has done a better job, and we continue to keep looking for better production.
Coach, going into the BYU game, you were leading the country in takeaways. Bronco Mendenhall spoke to the fact, he said that was one of the keys, is that they took it away twice and Virginia did not. In your mind, what was it just not enough opportunities, things they did that prevented you guys from getting, which become the signature this year, takeaways?
No, that has been a kind of a signature of the defense, the way they played. Now, the ball was out a couple times. We didn't have an opportunity to get to it. Going back and look at the film, Max Vallis had when he tackled Hill from behind, the ball was coming out. He had a chance to grab it. That was a loose ball. There was a snap that was fumbled. We didn't have a chance to get on that. There was a muffed punt. We didn't have a chance to get on that. Last week, the Louisville game, the plus territory, we were plus 46. They were plus 22. Second half, this game, it was just the opposite. Our starting average field position was, wasn't where it needed to be, and theirs was in the positive. And so that's one of the things, as I said in the opening statement, the margin for error, and there's a fine line to winning close games against good teams like that. You have to be on the plus side of that, and we weren't on Saturday.
I think a lot of people have focused on the quarterbacks you're using, but you've also used a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of wide receivers, a lot of running backs. Just in general, what sort of advantages do you think all those moving parts give you, and do you think this game on Saturday gives you more confidence just in the offense overall to going forward, that you can maybe do more with it?
When you look at our offensive line, it's the sum of many parts that make a whole for us. I mean, that's just the bottom line of who we are. You look at the receiving core, which, again, I still believe is a strength of our team, particularly on offense. There's a lot of individuals that play in that. You look at our running backs between Kevin Parks, Khalid Shepard, and Smoke Mizell. There's good players there. And it gives us an opportunity, particularly on offense, to play a lot of people. Now, after this game, we're getting ready to get into, like league play, ACC play. And the best way to provide depth going down the stretch is to have guys that have played in college football games. And offensively, we're there with that point. We'd like to do that more defensively if possible. But some of the offenses you played, particularly last week, preclude you from substituting, particularly when they keep the same personnel in the game and they go hurry up. You know, you can only substitute when they substitute. So we're still geared on playing a lot of players, particularly on defense, because going down the stretch we're going to need a lot of guys as we finish up the season.
Mike, you mentioned the shots downfield, a lot of throws on first down. Is that a growth that we're seeing, a trust factor, or kind of what's going into some of the more opening things up a little bit?
It starts from, you have to kind of self-scout yourself too. I mean, you know, whether your MO is to run the ball on every first down, you have to be able to do things. You look at yourself and game plan accordingly. And the way the offense and the way Coach Fairchild put the game plan together, I thought they put a smart game plan together, and were able to move the ball in a lot of situations. As I said, a lot of first downs. I think the 102 plays was a program record. The third down conversions, no sacks on the quarterback. The points that were put up were very productive for us. So, you know, being able to look at yourself and what you do is critical, as we will go into this game as well, looking at what we've done and even what we did against BYU.
You mentioned the offense and production down the stretch, particularly Khalid Shepard played real well. I think you mentioned him on Saturday. A guy that came here, you know, in a crowd at running back. Senior year, he's still in a crowd at running back, but now he's kind of standing. Is this him kind of peaking? And he talked about he seems to be a pretty selfless guy. Doesn't matter to him that he doesn't want to be the feature back. How important is that to have that type of guy on the team?
When you look at the team as a whole, and there's a lot of guys that are very selfless, and you know, we talk about this whole unity concept, and it's still very much prevalent amongst the guys. You know, Khalid we talked about our running backs is a guy that's a multi-dimensional guy. He has a skill set that we put because we put him in the game because of what he has. Kevin Parks the same way. He has a skill set. Smoke Mizell, he has the same, you know, different kind of skill sets. But Khalid has been a guy who's been here a while, fifth-year guys, graduated, going to take grad classes, is a selfless guy. And he, along with Grayson Lambert, were kind of our players on offense of the game. Ian Fry was the special teams player of the game, and Brendan Phelps was the defensive player of the game. So Khalid has done a nice job of just taking whatever role that there is and embracing it, and then, you know, trying to help the team win.
If I'm not mistaken, your quarterbacks rushed for 71 yards the other day, and Matt Johns, well, I guess they both had some successful runs earlier. Is that something you can do on a regular basis, or when you look at Grayson going down on a pass attempt, does it make you any more wary of having them run?
You know, the type of offense that we're playing right now is a type that at times dictates the quarterback to pull the ball and run if possible. And again, I go back to the game before. There was a play that Grayson had scored a touchdown on. That was the correct read. There were a couple times during the course of the game that they were reads that the quarterback, you know, should pull the ball, and then there were a few that they scrambled. And one particular run, you know, Grayson took off to the left side there, their sideline, and you know, I would have preferred he ran out of bounds, but he wanted to show how tough he was and tried to get extra yardage. So we'll talk about those things. But it's a process of taking what the defense gives you, particularly when you're in that near back read set type of offense. And if it's there, they'll pull it. If it's not, then they'll do what's called for as far as executing the play.
Mike, you've gone through a challenging stretch with 3 ranked opponents in the first 4 games. Do you expect that to pay dividends, you know, having gone through something like that, you know, the rest of the season?
I do. I believe the experience that you get from playing the caliber of teams that we just played also shows you that, as we talk about the margin for a win and loss, you know, the UCLA-BYU game versus the Louisville game, you know, the things that you have to do in order to execute and perform. And so these guys, we've played some tough opponents, some very good opponents that have had skilled players, big players, fast players. And now, you know, I know our opponent is, you know, Kent State this week, but a lot of this is about us getting better, eliminating the mental errors, the mental assignments, and the things that cause issues for some of these games that we didn't win. So it's been a learning process for us, but at this point of the season now, going into the 5th game, it's about us taking our game to another level as well.
You averaged almost 4.5 yards a carry Saturday against a defense that was allowing about 2 yards a carry. Was your run blocking significantly better Saturday than in the first 3 games? And if so, who really stood out to you in that group?
Dave, it was a different style of defense, a 3-4 defense that was kind of a 2-gap kind of defense. And part of the plan was to spread them out and try to use the passing game to stretch the field vertically. But at the same time, it lended itself to running the ball to the inside and to the outside tackle gaps. And that was something that was there for us. And the players that blocked, particularly the linemen up front, did a good job. And a guy I'll single out, and I could single out. I mean, I could call a lot of guys out, but Ryan Dahl has been a starter every game for us. He's a guard that goes unheralded about what he's done and what he's contributed, but he's done a really good job as well. And old linemen go unnoticed. They bear the brunt of a lot of criticism. But in this situation for us, being able to run the ball was critical, particularly getting those first downs. I mean, that was very impressive to see those guys block a very, very good front 7. And again, the strength of one of what we can do now going down the stretch is we have 9+ offensive linemen that we have to play with.
Very random question about it looked like the referees ruled that there was a shift when it was clearly a guy 3 or 4 yards downfield and not a motion penalty. What are your I guess tools to reach out to figure out what that was all about in terms of that call?
There's a process in place through the ACC that any plays that you might see or disagree with, that there's a process you go through, and they look at it, and they decide, or you get feedback as far as the mechanics of the play. Was it correct? Was it not? And so there's a process that we go through, and I've gone through that process.
What did they tell you on the field at the time? Just that it was. What did they say?
That they didn't see any movement.
You sort of alluded to this earlier about developing defensive depth, but your defense has played really well, but it seems like when it has given up some things, it's been in the second half. What specifically will you do? Is it along the line? Is it in the secondary? And then I wanted your opinion on, or your evaluation of your third cornerback in that BYU game. How did Draquan and Tim sort of, what do you do there going forward? Because obviously they had some moments where they played well and some moments where they didn't play so well.
Defensively, I don't know as much as getting tired, but one of the things we definitely have to work on is the red zone defense. When you get down there, you want to stop teams or limit teams to either field goals, and then we played really well in some moments, and in other moments, particularly at the end of the third quarter, and they scored some touchdowns there. But that's always a process that we continue to work on. The sudden change after a turnover, what do you do there? Can you hold them out? And I believe we've done fairly decent, at that point too. As far as the corner position, Tim Harris and Draquan Hosky, Devontae Walker, we'll look at some other things to always try to get the best players on the field to give us the best chance to win. And, we have to perform there, at that next position. And I'm sure we'll have a kind of a competitive, spirited, evaluative practice this week as to who will have that opportunity.
In your career here, have you ever been more confident in setting up for 40+ yard field goals than you are right now with Ian Fry?
There's been some good kickers. When Connor Hughes was a guy that was a former walk-on that ended up doing a really good job from Lafayette High School that I had a chance to recruit. Ian Fry is emerging as a guy that we stuck with, believed in. That's why I put him on scholarship. I believe in the young man. And he has delivered in a lot of situations. And it was good to know that he was the ACC Special Teams Player of the Week because he's done a phenomenal job thus far, and I'm happy for him. But you do get to that point to where are you on the field, the 34, the 35. You can punt it, or you can get a guy with the leg that Ian has and then say, let's get 3 points. And thus far, he's proven that he's fairly accurate, and we can get to that level and rely on him.
The last MAC team that came in here, Ball State last year, obviously a pretty good team. They beat you. Will you remind your guys that this is a team in the same conference?
What we're reminded about is the opportunity to win a football game, and we take it, again, you guys always say that's coach speak, but for us, truly, this is a chance to win our third game. And to us, it's been a ladder. And every game, every situation has kind of been another rung on the ladder. Spring practice, summer, August camp, the games that we've had. This is another process for us. And what's standing in front of us having a third win is Kent State. And regardless of what conference they come from, to us it's about another win opportunity.
And Mike, for all the gains you guys have made on offense and the things you've been able to do and how well Ian's kicked, is it a concern that you had to settle for 4 field goals?
Well, we just talked about, when you get down in the red zone, you want points. And that's something that, that every offense wants to have the ability to do, is turn that high red zone or medium or low red zone into touchdown opportunities. And so we're very cognizant of that, and that's something that, that not just our offense, but every offense wants to benefit from. However, benefiting from getting points is also critically a component of being successful once you get down there. I think we were 5 for 5 down in that red zone area. So we'll keep working on it, keep trying to find ways to get touchdowns once we get down there.
And Darius was here before, and he said that he thought at this point last year, even at 2-2, that guys that started hanging their heads when things weren't going well and stuff. And there seems to continue to be this real resolve that they're just not going to get knocked off course. What do you attribute most of that to?
We talked about earlier about going from the 4 seniors to the 22 plus. We talked about unity. We talked about accountability and responsibility that the players really want to have, and that's been a strong theme and an undercurrent that we want to do well. They want to play well. The seniors want to leave. As I told them yesterday, after this game, it's about halfway done for some of you guys. I mean, it's come quickly, for them, and you realize that you have your own fate, your own destiny that you can control, and so there's more of a resolve and of a resiliency and a mindset that why not us? And that's the biggest thing right now that's been the difference.
Coach, I don't know if you can speak to it or not, and you were asked on the teleconference just if there's any updates on Grayson. And as a second part to that, do you feel like you're in a better position than some teams that you have, whether you want to call them a backup or an alternate, that can run your offense as efficiently as the one who starts the game?
Sure. Grayson was in a walking boot after the game, and he was wearing it yesterday. We don't practice today. We'll practice tomorrow. So we'll evaluate where he is, at the appropriate time. So as of right now, Matt Johns and David Wofford will be guys that will be getting reps in practice. And it does benefit us that Matt Johns has been in college football games. It benefits us that David Wofford has been in college football games. So the position of where we're at, what we're asking our guys to do offensively, how our quarterbacks operate, both of them can handle that as well. And so we'll see what happens with Grayson. But if not, like any other position, the next man up mentality.
Mike, Kevin appears to be running just as hard as he always has and giving you the effort, but the yards have not been there for him. Are opponents keying on him more than they have in the past, or are the holes just not there for him?
It's probably a little bit of everything. Giving him enough carries. As David mentioned early on, the runs per average weren't as high as what we needed. Personnel, and game planning. So Kevin is another one of those selfless guys that just, one of our leaders that just wants to win, and whatever it takes. If you notice, one of the ways he was productive is we threw the ball to him. He had a decent number of catches, whether it's screen or flare passes. So whatever it takes for KP, as we call him, he's a guy that has bought into that and is a guy that demonstrates that with his actions and his attitude to the rest of the team.
Pace of play was a real hot button topic last season. And then after West Virginia ran, I think, 120 plays against Maryland, Randy Edsall voiced some concerns. You ran 102 on Saturday. Do you have any concerns that the game is too fast in any way?
You know, it's important that, as you guys know, we first started this thing out, one of the things we changed, my mindset, was this whole recovery process and how you go about practicing and what do you do to train your players. You know, the old adage of, you know, you keep going until you can't go anymore. I mean, it's not sports science. It's not smart. And so our practices have cut down. What we've done in training has been facilitated by our strength and conditioning coach, what we eat, when we eat, how we sleep. I mean, there's so many different things that science lends itself to that in actuality, we've been at Scott Stadium and guys have had to go in and get IVs and, you know, at halftime and post-game. Coming out of the BYU game with all this talk about elevation, there was one guy after the game, that was Mike Mooney, that had to get an IV. So I believe from my standpoint that as the game has evolved, then the way you approach the game with what you do with training your players becomes even more important. And if you don't do that, then perhaps you're setting your guys up for, you know, for a physical failure, because it's just, you know, you can't outlast an offense that's out there that's going play after play. Now, they're going play after play as well. But I do believe there's things you can do to help minimize that effect.
Mike, I don't know if you know this. Andrew just noticed it on this sheet. Al Groh is going to be the color commentator for this game on Saturday. I wondered what that relationship is like and what that might be. I don't know if you knew that already, but what that'll be like on Saturday and Friday leading up into the game.
I have no idea. I do know Coach Groh. I have a profound amount of respect for him. He hired me here and he promoted me here, so there's always that deep respect for Coach. His knowledge of football, his love for the game is is unmatched. And so I don't know if we'll talk face to face or by telephone or whatever it is, but it'll be interesting. I'd love to talk to Coach and see how he's doing.
You will, 2:45 on Friday.
Okay, thank you. That's been answered.
You know, a lot of teams obviously go through adversity. Some teams go through tragedy. What were your immediate thoughts when you heard a Kent State player that died suddenly in August? And what kind of respect do you have for that team, you know, having battled through that at such a crucial point of the preseason?
You know, your heart always goes out, your thoughts and prayers go out to any team, any player, any family that has to go through things like that. And one of the things that we always talk about is, who do you play this game for? Because in a moment, whether it's a tragedy, whether it's an injury that ends your college career or whatever it is, you just never know. And so your appreciation of your family, people that are significant to you, should always be verbalized. Told the guys yesterday, call your parents, tell them that you love them. You know, our hearts and prayers go out for Hannah Graham's family. You know, just things like that. I mean, you just never know. And so to be appreciative of the things and opportunities that you have, don't take it for granted, because you just never know. But Coach Haynes and I'll make sure that we, again, express, you know, our feelings, you know, for him and his program. But, you know, never take anything for granted.
Mike, have you ever had an analyst give you advice about something on defense?
Yes, my wife. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Been a while since you heard anything about Andrew Brown. How's he coming along? And I guess he made the trip to BYU. And for a guy that's had nothing but, you know, the highest levels of success, how's he kind of holding up without? Have you had to sort of pull him aside and tell him, you know, hang in there?
No, the biggest thing with a lot of players sometimes is managing the outside influence of others that think you should and what's good for you. If you were to ask the guys, particularly the 4 freshmen that are playing for us, Quinn Blanding, Donnie Dowling, Andrew and Jamil Kamara, if you were asked them how they're being treated, ask them what's being, how they're being coached, how are they being brought along, the answer would be they're bringing me along fine, and Andrew will, again, have another opportunity to play this game, as will Jamil. He played this week on a special teams role, but their mindset, their mentality has been really, really good. And again, it's always for these top players sometimes to manage the outside expectations that other people have about them and for them.
Finally, Coach, just your general impressions. It's early in the week of the Golden Flashes. Just, as the opponent coming in this weekend, things you've seen, what you expect to see from them.
They offensively, they have multiple formations. The quarterback is a good player. And they got a receiver that's a guy that can go get it. They use their tight end a lot. They'll line him up all over the place and try to get the ball to him. Defensively, number 7 for them is very active. He's a very, very good football player. They play multiple fronts. They're a type of defense that will game plan you, as the game has gone on or coming into the game. When you look at the games they've played, they're in different fronts, different blitzes, which leads you to believe that they will look at what you do and then try to game plan that. I know their punter averages about 43.8 yards per punt. Last week, this young man that kicked those 265-yarders was only averaging 45 yards, and I've never been involved in a football game where guys surpassed his average by those kicks. It was unbelievable. But you have to. You got to manage what happens during the course of the game, and as you asked about Kent State, they're a team that's hungry for victory, and that's the thing you cannot never overlook, the fact that teams that want to taste success, and we want to taste it as well.
Before we bring Maurice Kennedy up, I'm going to ask Coach to stay. We're going to have Ian Fry come up, and we're going to tell you a story. You guys don't know. This is kind of hard for me to even bring it up. I'm going to ask Ian to come up. Coach, you stay up here. If you guys can just share the mic between you, whoever's talking first. I want to start this with Coach London. At the end of the first half, we kicked a field goal at the end of the half. Coach, if you can take the mic first, I want you to describe what you saw, as we came up the tunnel at halftime, and then we'll let Ian talk. If you pull the mic.
Wow. You guys, we just talked about the Kent State player. We just talked about what's important to you and identifying, those people in your life that have been significant. And so coming off the field, I was told that Ian's father was suffering some chest pains, and he just happened to be right in front of our locker room area. And I didn't see him at first, so I went in and I talked to the team. And they said, he's outside, Coach. He's right outside the door. So I went back out, and he was sitting on the ground, sitting up. There were the paramedics around him. And I just got down on my knees, and I put my hand on him. I just said, hey, listen, we're thinking about you. We're praying for you. And, went back in and got the team ready to go back out in the second half. So I knew that there was something going on. Subsequently, I've heard what's gone on now. And, first of all, I wanted to thank the BYU people, the police, the AD, Coach Mendenhall. They were fantastic in their help and their assistance, the hospital, everything. It was first class. And so with that, I'll just turn it over to Ian, and he can, if he wishes to, he can talk about whatever.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure Ian's dad's okay, and he's comfortable talking about this before we brought this to everyone's attention. So again, maybe Ian, you kick a field goal at the end of the half. You want to walk them through what happened with you as you're walking off the field, et cetera. Just pull that microphone over a little bit.
Going into the halftime, walking to the locker room, my mother, she's coming down the stairs, and she yells to me and tells me that my dad's having a lot of chest pain. Walking up the ramp, I see my dad. I go inside real quick, tell a couple of teammates, and they tell me to come back out. I go out, and I'm able to talk with my dad and kind of discuss what's going on with him and talk to the paramedics. And he keeps telling me to go inside, he'll be fine, and so does my mom. So after a few minutes with him, I go back inside, and I kind of sit there, talk with teammates, and kind of get my mind ready for the next half. So going out into the second half, my dad was no longer there. Jerry, he was talking to me on the sideline, telling me, keeping me up to date, letting me know that he was in the hospital. My mom was with him, that he was doing pretty good. Just sitting there on the sideline, it was tough, but I wanted to be there with my team, wanted to support them, do what I needed to do. And I was called out for a 46-yard field goal, and that was probably one of my hardest kicks I've ever had to do. Just knowing about my dad and what he was going through and having to perform still for the team. And I kicked it for him, and I was very pleased to see it went through and coming off on the sideline and going over to my teammates and having them around me, supporting me, keeping me my head up. It was an incredible experience, really it was, having the team there for me. And after the game, Coach London bringing us all together, saying a prayer for my dad, which really I appreciate so much. And then Jerry and the rest of the staff helped me out with the BYU police, escorting me to the hospital, bringing me to him, and it was a tremendous relief seeing my dad, that he was all right, that the procedure had gone well, and knowing that he was going to be safe. I was very pleased and surprised to see the AD from BYU come out there. He actually brought me a meal and, talked to me and my mother and reassured us that it was all going to be good, and really our family appreciates that so much. And I guess the hospital and their staff out there, they were so kind and so helpful. We appreciate it so very much.
So he had a heart attack?
Yeah, my father suffered a heart attack. The 2 stents that he'd had previously put in approximately a year ago, they'd reclogged, and they went in and cleaned them back up.
So when did you get back to, did you stay over then?
Yeah, I stayed an extra night in Utah, flew out yesterday, but we were delayed so much that I had to stay a night in Atlanta, and that was tough, being away from my dad and my mom, and then knowing that he was still going through a little bit of stuff. And then I flew out this morning, got back here, and still stayed in contact, and he's doing better. So.
And your dad's still there, correct?
Yeah, my father and mother are still in Utah right now.
So you saw him walking up the tunnel?
The first time the first time I saw him, he was sitting down with the paramedics. They were working with him.
And he'd already had the procedure when you got to see him after the game?
Yeah, the procedure was already completed. He was laying back, actually watching college football, and he was quite upset that he'd missed the final kick that I had. He said it was.
You go on the field to kick a field goal with this dad thing kind of, dominating your mindset.
It was tough, I'm not going to lie, but I just relied on all the training and past experience I had, and just told myself I had a job to do and I had to complete it.
What was the procedure he had? He had 2 more stents put in?
No, they still just have 2 stents. I'm not exactly sure what the procedure was, but they just cleaned them out again. With his support, it's been great, and then with my fiance as well, she was there, keeping my head up. I actually messaged her before going out in the second half, and she said that he was going to be all right, and just keep your head up and keep your head in the game and do what you got to do, and then see him afterwards.
Was she at the game?
No, she was still in Charlottesville.
What was the hospital?
Do you recall? It was only 2 or 3 blocks away, correct?
Yeah, I'm not. It was really close.
I'll find it out.
Mhm.
Brandon? Is Brandon back there?
Yeah.
Do you know what it is, Brandon?
Utah Valley Regional Medical Center. What were your teammates? I mean, what were some of their reactions? Did they really believe that you were still being able to go out and play?
I only told a few going into the second half. I only talked to Alec Wazenilek, Dylan Sims, and our long snapper. I talked to them. I didn't want to tell anyone else. Kind of wanted to keep it to myself and a few guys, just let them know. And they're real helpful. You know, they kept me up on the sidelines, told me to just, you know, do my job and everything would be all right. And then at the end, when Coach London did bring it up to the team, everyone kind of embraced me, came around me, you know, showed their support, and I really appreciate all that. And even after the game, and still to this day, they're still sending me messages, checking in, and making sure everything's going all right.
Has your dad gone to every game of your career?
Yeah, he's been to every game, and he says he's never missed a kick, and so he was quite upset that he had, but he's looking forward to coming, if possible, to this upcoming game.
Mike, you've had situations where your dad wasn't doing well and it was really difficult for you. How hard was it for you to coach in the second half knowing that one of your guys was going through something like that?
You know, it is a tough part about having to deal with personal circumstances, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm also the head coach of a football team that has to play. And, you know, you try to, you don't forget, it's always in the back of your mind, but I got to coach the team, and I have to, you know, do the things that a head coach is supposed to do. So it's difficult, but as Ian just said, you know, this is a family, and I talk about the things that happens not only in your personal family, but within the team. We're a family, and when one hurts, we all hurt. So this whole mindset of who do you play for, each player has to answer that individually. And in the end, that's what's most important, you know. And Ian was the guy. His family was they were the family members that all of us need to rally around, and that was most important.
What's your dad's name?
Mark Fry.
Do you know how old he is?
He's 58. Yep.
When you see him, I mean, what's going through your mind when you see your dad slumped over being tended to? I mean, what's your initial reaction?
At first, I was shocked, very upset. Hopped over the railing, checked on him, and he really wasn't talking. He was in so much pain and just overheating, out of breath, and it was disturbing, really, to see my dad like that. I've seen him like that one time before, and I knew it was a heart attack just the way he was acting. And seeing my mom, and she was on the phone and trying to talk to other people, but luckily we had a great staff there at BYU. They really helped us out, you know, kept us calm and did the right thing, got him to the hospital real quick.
So you had witnessed his first heart attack?
Yeah.
When and where was this, and how old?
It was before last year's training camp, actually the day before. He had a heart attack before I was supposed to come back. And I had to carry him to the car, and we were on top of a mountain, actually, and it was about a 45-minute drive down the mountain to get him to the hospital.
Had you been hiking? Or?
It was a family retreat with friends. He was playing volleyball when it happened.
So you were essentially his ambulance driver that day?
Actually, my mother was. I drove behind in the other car. But.
Kicking can be such a mental thing a lot of the time. How important is this week of practice and, you know, to kind of collect everything going into another game?
Yeah, I mean, he'll always be on my mind, but during practice and in the game, I'll have to try my hardest to block it out and, you know, perform for him, perform for my family, perform for my team, and just do my best.
A lot of times in, you know, tragic situations, sports is a thing for people to be able to actually get away from it. Were you ever able to, when you were playing, I mean, obviously that kick was huge for you, but were you ever able to kind of not really focus on what was going on to the hospital, maybe focus on the game that actually gave you a little break from that? Was there ever that moment for you?
There were a few moments when the team was doing well and when I had the kick. He was always in the back of my mind, but it definitely helped get it off my mind.
Was there any part of you that thought about just leaving at halftime with him?
That part of me did, but he immediately told me I needed to stay, as did my mom, and I knew it was the right thing to do. I knew that the paramedics as well as doctors would take care of him.
Mike, was there any part of you that thought about telling Ian, go to the hospital?
There was a part of me that thought that and wanted to leave that up to him, because whatever he wanted to do, I would support him 100%. And he chose to stay. And, you know, like you said, I mean, his parents, his father's been very much involved with with Ian and kicking and this whole process with him. And it doesn't surprise me that he would say, listen, go back out there and play, kick, do well.
Is your dad like a kicking guru, or is he just a father and a fan?
Father and a fan. He's somewhat of a statistician. He loves watching games. He loves keeping track of everyone in the nation and comparing me and letting me know when I'm not doing my best. But yeah, he loves kicking. He helps me out. He'll always be the first to critique if you see something wrong.
How tall is he?
He's 6'2". Yeah, he's not quite as tall.
Okay. What did he play growing up?
He played a little bit of football when he was younger, just elementary school. He did kicking, and he was quarterback. And then he had, played baseball through high school, and then soccer in college.
You were soccer first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did he steer you in that direction at all, or to go to football, or is this like your?
Yeah, he started me out in soccer at a real young age. But coming from a private school, going to a public school in high school, he wanted me to play football as a way to meet people and get into the school.
Coach, what do you think it said to the rest of the team that Ian was willing to come back out, and not only that, but to play the way he did?
Well, probably first and the utmost was, one, how's his father? Two, we support you in whatever decision that you make. And then three, he's like any other family member that you got to console. So they did that in their way. And as someone asked about, when you're in athletics, one of the best things to do is to play, because it occupies your mind for the most part for that moment. And in those, I can't speak to how he felt coming off the sideline. It's not like a kicker plays every snap. So I'm quite sure there were things that were on his mind. But I tell you what, this guy performed in that game. And he is one of the best kickers in college football right now in my mind. And I think statistics even speak to that. And so for him to have with those things going on, with the support of his team, with the support of his family, then I think that's an awesome statement. It just speaks well of him, his family, this team, and how we feel about each other.
Being one of the few who knew what must have been going through his mind when he kicked that 46-yard, when it went through the uprights, what went through your mind, and what did you say to him when he came to the side?
You know what? I knew he'd probably say, "That's for you, Dad." What else did you say?
What did you say?
Actually, I didn't get a chance to see him until later on, because there was, a lot of guys hugging him and things like that, So, but like I said, it's he's got an incredible leg, and he's one of several bright spots on this year's team. Just the situation last year, who was the kicker? He and Alex. This guy made a determination to work hard during the off season, that whole spring and that summer. And it's such a joy to put him on scholarship, because he's earned every penny of it.
So I guess that ACC Special Teams Player of the Week designation this week is pretty cool.
Yeah. My dad was actually the one who texted me. I had no idea. He was keeping up. It was just great.
He must be
Statistician, he was, yeah.
Yeah.
Was he one of your when you were hurt last year? Was he one of your biggest supporters, I would imagine?
Yeah, absolutely. He always told me to keep my head up, get healthy. That was my main goal. And then if I could, come back later in the season. If not, get ready for the next.
What did you tell him when he texted you that? Like, Dad, chill out and get better?
Yeah, I told him just relax and worry on getting better. Yeah.
You used to talk about being on scholarship and what that means to you, and just the year you're having. I mean, you're having one of the best years as a kicker in the country.
Yeah, being put on a scholarship, that was tremendous help to my family and I, and made me more determined than ever to do my very best and perform as I could for the University of Virginia.